All right, so today, this is day 2. We're going to learn the Pythagorean theorem and its converse again. Well, today is basically just the converse part of it. Yesterday was Pythagorean theorem. All right, so the converse of Pythagorean theorem, it says if the square lengths of the longest side of a triangle is equal to the sum of the square lengths of the other two sides, then the triangle will be a right triangle. So basically, we are going to do Pythagorean theorem. If the a squared plus the b squared equals the c squared, it will be a right triangle. So example 1, it says tell whether the given triangle is a right triangle. The biggest part that we need to figure out when we're doing these problems is you have to find the longest side. The longest side represents your hypotenuse if it is a right triangle. So do we know in our heads what 3 radical 34 is? We don't. So we're going to have to put it into our calculators and see what number it is. So in your calculator, you're going to put 3 radical 34, and you figure out that it is 17.49. Now I rounded that. You cannot use that in your problem. But we need to know that it's 17.49, and when you look at your other two sides, you see that this is the longest side. So when I use my equation, I'm going to put this in for C. So I'm going to plug it in. 9 squared plus 15 squared equals my longest side squared. So I'm going to check if this works. So 9 squared is 81. 15 squared is 225. That equals, all right, how we have to go about this. This squared goes to the 3 and the radical 34. So what really happens is your 3 squared is 9, and you have to do the square root of 34 squared, which is 34. Those numbers end up having to be multiplied here. Okay, so we're going to multiply them. So I'm going to continue. 81 plus 225 is 306. 9 times 34 is 306. So since they equal each other, that means that this is a right triangle, which is what the question asks. Tell whether the given triangle is a right triangle. It is a right triangle. Let's look at example B and do another one together. Looking at the numbers between 22, 14, and 26, we figure out which one is the longest length. 26 is the longest length, so that means that that's going to be plugged in for my C. And we're going to use 22 and 14 for the other two numbers. 14 squared plus 22 squared will equal 26 squared. $14 squared is 196. 22 squared is 484. That will equal my 26 squared. 26 squared is 676. Add, combining, using our terms. 680 will equal 676. Do these two numbers equal each other? They do not. So that means that this is not a right triangle. Okay, so you guys are going to do C, D, and E down here at the bottom. First thing, especially just looking at the problem, C and D, you have to figure out what 4 radical 3 is. You have to figure out what radical 61 is. So when you're doing this, you know which one's your longest length before you continue. Please make sure you check the answers that will be posted online to make sure you got those correct. Let's move on. All right, so what this is saying up here at the top, it's telling us that we have other options. We don't only just have right triangles. If it's not a right triangle, it can be acute or obtuse. So this is what these are saying. So it says if the square of the length of the longest side of a triangle is less than the sum of the square of the lengths of the other two sides, then the triangle ABC is an acute triangle. So what this says right here, the equation, I highlighted it, is c squared is less than a squared plus b squared, then it will be acute. I wrote a little note over here because this is how I remember it. If my hypotenuse squared is smaller than my other two sides added together squared, it's going to be acute. Smaller, acute. Now the other one of this is your obtuse. So it says if the square length of the longest side of a triangle is greater than the sum of the square lengths of the other two sides, then the triangle is going to be obtuse. C squared is greater than a squared plus b squared, gets you to be obtuse. So my hypotenuse squared is greater than the other two sides combined squared. It is going to be obtuse, greater, obtuse. This is kind of how I remember it. All right, so in example 2, it says, can segment lengths 4.3 feet, 5.2 feet, and 6.1 feet form a triangle? So remember when we were doing our stuff back when we were learning about triangles, we had to figure out, does it form a triangle first? So to know if something forms a triangle, you have to add the two smaller sides, has to be greater than the third. You have to add two sides and make sure it's always greater than the third. No matter which two you pick, it should always work out, but we always normally check the smaller two. So my smaller two sides are 4.3 and 5.2. So I'm going to take 4.3 plus 5.2 has to be greater than my third side, which is 6.1. So this is 9.5 when you add them is greater than 6.1. That means that this actually forms a triangle. Ooh, sorry, spelled that wrong. Now, if it doesn't form a triangle, it's not going to be obtuse, right, or acute because it doesn't form a triangle. So this is really important that we make sure we check this concept first. Now, to go from here, we have to figure out, is it acute, right, or obtuse? So the formula we're going to use is c squared. We don't know whether it's going to be equal, less than, or greater than, so I'm going to leave it blank. A squared plus b squared. Remember, your longest side always goes in for c. So it's going to be 6.1 squared, because we don't know, to your other two sides squared. So it's 4.3 squared plus 5.2 squared. You're going to want to use your calculator for some help here. 6.1 squared is 37.21. 4.3 squared is 18.49 plus 5.2 squared is 27.04. Combine this side and see what is happening. 37.21 is, we don't know, to 45.52 when you add that. So what is 37.21 to 45.52? It's a less than sign. So my hypotenuse is less than the other two sides. It is smaller. So that's going to take me to my acute. That means that this is an acute triangle. And that's all you have to do. You complete this math, figure out what this is, and you can get your answer to figure out what type of triangle it is. The most important part is if you want to follow this, if you follow this properly and use this formula, it will always give the answers right here. Example 3 is the exact same concept. You're going to plug it in, Figure out does it form a triangle, and figure out is it acute, right, or obtuse if it forms a triangle. Okay, I'm gonna let you guys do that one. Example 4 is just a logic question. It's going to have you think. It says you are part of a crew that is installing the mast on a catamaran. When the mast is fastened properly, it is perpendicular to the trampoline deck. How can you check that the mast is perpendicular using a tape measure? I want you to think about that answer and come up with how you would know if it's perpendicular or not. I posted those answers on our Google Classroom. Example 5, it says show that the lengths 3, 4, 6 form a triangle, and you're going to classify the triangle as acute, right, or obtuse. That is the same as example 2 that we did together. Please complete that question as well. Down here at the bottom of our notes, right before we get to our homework assignment, these are the 3 ways and the 3 formulas you can use. So the first one, classifying your triangle by its side lengths. If it equals, it's a right triangle. If it's less than, it's going to be acute. If your hypotenuse is greater than, it's going to be obtuse. These are the 3 things that we need to remember from today's lesson. If you have any questions, please let me know. Your homework assignment that you're going to complete is on page 553, 21 to 32. I will post it on the classroom, and you do have to complete the form. Have a good day, guys.